I'm John Wetenhall. I'd like to give you my tips today on how to drive Confluence adoption. So just before I start, show of hands, how many of you are already using Confluence today? Everyone. All right, so hopefully this will be new for you. Hopefully a lot of you are introducing Confluence, and these will be good tips for you. So a little bit about me. I've worked on Confluence for the past 4 years in 2 different roles. I started out in product marketing, and now I do Confluence product and business strategy and operations. Over the last 4 years, I've had the chance to speak with scores of customers about their challenges and their success stories. And this topic is one that comes up often. But why am I doing a talk on it at Summit? So first of all, I love Confluence because I genuinely believe in its ability to change how individuals, teams, and organizations work and get stuff done. I almost feel like my brain has been rewired to think about organizing my work and projects with Confluence in mind. Second, I know it's a topic people really care about. I've done versions of this talk at a number of Atlassian user groups around the world, and next week I'll add Europe as my 4th continent when I present in Germany. So what I often hear from people like you is, I get how Confluence works and how it can help us, but my colleagues just don't get it. And I think there's 2 basic barriers to Confluence adoption. Number 1, Confluence is one of those things that's hard to grasp until you see it in action. Can any of you remember your aha moment when you really understood the value of Confluence? Second, changing behavior is really difficult. If you've been using email and PowerPoint for years, unless someone shows you how to do it differently, you're not going to change. So I'm here to show you some basic techniques that I've seen work both at Atlassian and with our customers to help people see the light and change their behavior of their colleagues. Now, there are a lot of reasons why you might encourage adoption of Confluence in your team or company, and there are 3 that I'd like to focus on today. So number 1 is improving access and transparency. Confluence is built on the principle of openness, and it's all about breaking down silos between teams, individuals, and business units. Get people out of email, so if they weren't on the email chain, they can still find the information they need. Second, build a strong company culture. With today's world of distributed teams, creating a strong company culture can be really difficult. Confluence can help bring people together across geographies and time zones in a virtual way. And third, we want to improve collaboration. We want to improve how your team actually gets work done. Now, this goes hand in hand with access and transparency, but it also includes just actually doing the work, giving feedback on documents and files, creating rich roadmaps and diagrams that your colleagues can comment on and share together. So those are the benefits you get, but I'd like to think about it another way. You need to make Confluence relevant, fun, and habitual. So I have 3 overarching tips for you in each of those areas with specific techniques to help you achieve your goals of adoption. Now, it might sound like a lot of work. It's not, but it's also not as easy as just sending an email telling people to log into Confluence. So let me show you how. Now, there's 2 essential ways you can make Confluence relevant. First, you need to make it your own. This means spending some time on the look and feel of Confluence and making it reflective of your organization. Second, even if it's the prettiest Confluence instance out there, no one's going to visit unless there's some key information in there that they need. So let's focus on the first one. Confluence allows you to do some simple branding of your instance itself. You can change the color scheme to match your company's colors and replace the Confluence logo in the top left with your own. This might sound simple, but it goes a long way into making Confluence feel like it's part of your company's toolset. So to do this, you just go to the general configuration with the cog in the upper right, scroll down to look and feel on the left-hand side, and a pro tip for you here, skip straight to the site logo and favicon option, because if you upload a logo, perhaps the Golden State Warriors, my favorite basketball team, then Confluence will magically update your color scheme to match your logo. It's pretty sweet. So you can find detailed instructions for this in our documentation. Just Google changing the look and feel of Confluence, and you'll get to our documentation about it. It's super easy. So now that you've made Confluence look like your company's colors, you have to fill it with some key information to give people a reason to visit. It's great to enlist some help at this stage of people in your company that have information that everyone needs. I suggest the human resources or the people team, as we call it at Atlassian. So our human resources team has done a really great job of making their space the go-to place for any information anyone needs about our offices, our perks, our policies, etc. It's got great images, as you can see here, and buttons to click out to their service desks where you can raise a request to go to the HR team. So if you scroll down, you get links to these important topics, like benefits and perks, policies, training and education info, and more. So what's something that everyone cares about? Vacation time, or holiday as we say in Australia. So from their homepage, I can quickly click through to my location, Sydney, and then get the information I need, the actual holidays that we get. So where does your company store this information now? If it's not in Confluence, think about putting it in there because it's a great way to get people to start using Confluence. Now, another example is from one of our customers and partners, Siebert Media in Germany. They put their daily lunch menus in Confluence, which you can see here. And I think this is a great way to do it because everyone's got to eat, and I bet that if you start doing this, people will be logging into Confluence every single day. So the takeaway here is to think about the information people want and need and start with that. You want to make sure people have a reason to visit Confluence, and then you can get into having them contribute, which brings me to my next point. One way to get people to contribute is to make it fun. And the way that we do that at Atlassian is we get every new starter to write an intro blog. When anyone joins, one of their tasks on their 90-day plan is to write a blog introducing him or herself to the company. Now, as you can imagine, people take this in all kinds of directions and get very creative with it. This designer, Kelly, has styled up her page, as you can see. She's added videos, she's added photos of her family, and even some Photoshopped photos of herself as major celebrities. Now, here are some tips for what makes a good intro blog. You want to introduce yourself, include pictures. It's great to include pictures of your family, your dogs, whatever. Talk about your hometown and your hobbies, but it's not meant to be your resume. You don't need to tell your whole lifestyle or your whole life story, but just give people an indication of who you are. So here's another great example of a recent person that joined from Trello. Now, how do you take this to the next level? A great way to encourage this behavior is to get your top leadership on board. So here's one of our general managers, Didier Moretti's intro blogs. And here's one from one of our executives, Mike Cannon-Brooks, our co-founder, on why everyone should participate in the upcoming Ship It, our quarterly hackathon. Now, our leadership uses Confluence to blog about company announcements, big wins, strategic decisions, all these things. In other companies, people use email for this. But by getting an exec on board to do this in Confluence, it's a great way to bring folks in. You change one person's behavior, and it has a follow-on effect with your whole company. Because their information that the executives are sharing is very important, and it's widely read. So far, we've covered how to give people a reason to visit Confluence and a way to get them creating content from the very get-go. But what's going to really change people's way of working for the better? How can you make Confluence into a habit for your colleagues? Now, what's something that we do at work all the time? Any ideas? Besides check Facebook. We all have meetings. We have lots of meetings, and if you came to my earlier talk, I see some familiar faces in the audience, you know how much of a problem meetings can be. So how can Confluence help us solve meetings? Well, in two ways, I think. We can either replace or eliminate meetings with Confluence pages, or we can improve the ones we have. So how do we replace them? A lot of you might work in organizations where you have to create a PowerPoint presentation and actually give that presentation at every meeting. And then if you're attending, you have to take notes because otherwise you won't have access to this information again. It's not ideal. Now, I think a lot of the meetings we have can actually be replaced by Confluence pages. Two examples are weekly status meetings and meetings to get everyone on the same page, or just what I would call an FYI meeting. You don't need these meetings. You can create pages and share them out instead. So what does that look like? Here's an example of what could be a weekly status meeting. It's where we get updates from all of our sub-teams within the Confluence Cloud team about how things are going, things that are blocking them, and critical successes they've had. Instead of hosting a meeting, we have this Confluence page that everyone updates every Monday. It saves time for the 10 or 15 people on the page, and then everyone gets visibility into what the other teams are working on and struggling with. It's a great way for us to uncover dependencies. So we've avoided a meeting. Similarly, sharing information or an FYI is best done by sharing a Confluence page. Now, in this particular example, we've used an info macro at the top of the page that gives a brief summary of what's on the page and what we're asking the readers to look for as they go through it. If you really want to make sure that people have read your page, you can @mention each of them with a tick box next to their name and ask them to check it off after they've read the page. Now, we use the share button instead of emailing these pages out to indicate that people should write their comments in Confluence. If you put the link in an email, then people might respond to the email, and all of that discussion gets lost. So it's really critical to invite people to do things in Confluence because that keeps the discussion there. So you can't eliminate all meetings. I've tried to eliminate as many as I can. But meetings are super useful when you need to collaborate and have a clear goal and outcome that you want to achieve. Because everyone has to have meetings, running them using Confluence is a great, lightweight way to engage with your colleagues, and it shows off many of the benefits of Confluence along the way. So before you invite anyone to a meeting, I recommend creating a meeting notes page. This is one of the many blueprints that ships within Confluence, and you can get to it from the Create dialog. You just have to hit the 3 dots next to the Create button to bring up a list. So once you create the page, it looks like this. I've slightly modified what ships out of the box here, but it's easy to move things around, as I'll show you in a second. So the meeting notes template guides you through the basic things you need for a meeting. It gives you a spot for your goals, instant structure for your agenda with your discussion items. You can use @mentions to notify all of your attendees of the upcoming meeting, and use it as an opportunity to clarify the specific roles within the meeting. We love to use the DAISY framework. And finally, you should record your action items using @mentions at the top of the page. So people get a notification that brings them back, and then they can record their results right there. So this is what the same page looks like in edit mode. You can see how I've used page layouts to put my goals and background up near the top on the right there, and also put the action items at the top. So this is actually what the page looked like after the meeting. So you can see we made a decision, and we marked it with the green decided status macro. For those of you unfamiliar, a status macro comes in a variety of colors, and you can edit the text, and it's a great way to call things out on a page. I've also linked out to some other pages that were relevant to the discussion, so if someone comes along later trying to figure out what happened, they can easily catch up. Now, what about after the meeting? Because you've used the meeting notes blueprint, Confluence recognizes this and organizes all of your meeting notes in a space in a collector page that looks like this. It makes it really easy to find. You'll find it in your space shortcuts on your sidebar, and then, of course, lower down in your page tree. It's really useful for looking back at old meetings for decisions or notes that you might have missed if you were out sick that day. Now, how do you encourage this? I recommend putting a short intro to what's in your meeting in your calendar invitation, and then adding a link to your agenda page in Confluence. This gives people a chance to dig deeper into the context and goals for the meeting beforehand, and when you get that little pop-up notification 10 minutes before the meeting, the page link is right there for you to open up and refer to. And guess what? We're actually launching a new feature that's going to help you even more with this with Confluence Mobile. So coming soon on iOS and Android, Confluence Mobile will actually connect with your calendar and show you your meeting notes and other pages right in your home screen. So you can look at your upcoming day and quickly get to the pages that are related to those meetings. It will help everyone get on the same page before the meeting. So quickly recapping what we covered today, because I know I went through a bunch of stuff fast. First, you want to make it relevant. My suggestions are to brand your instance with your colors and logos or themes, and putting key basic information like vacation policies. This starts to build the notion of open access for everyone and puts information that's valuable into Confluence. Second, make it fun. Intro blogs are a great way to get every new starter familiar with Confluence and simultaneously learn something about your colleagues. Pretty soon, people will be blogging instead of blasting out emails, and this is an important part of building culture. Finally, make it into a habit. Start using Confluence to make your meeting experience better, either by replacing and eliminating meetings with Confluence pages, and then using meeting notes to make your existing meetings even better. So introducing a new tool is hard enough, but with Confluence, you're also introducing a new way of working. If you combine introducing the tool with simple, useful behavioral changes, it won't feel like work to learn for your colleagues. They'll see the value of this new way of working sooner and be more motivated to learn the tool. Bring them on the journey with you. All you have to do is set the course. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. I will be at the Confluence booth later if you have additional questions. Hope you've had a great summit.